Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today, Trina's getting super personal and sharing about something absolutely horrendous and catastrophic that occurred to her that changed her life. However, it's one of those things that brought her to the point of doing what she actually wanted to do, whether she liked to or not. She was able to make it work for her. With those catastrophic events, just like everything in life, it's what we do with them. It's not what happens, it's what we do with it. We hope you get value from this conversation. We started off talking today about catastrophic events. And one of the reasons why I thought we'd get into that is because a few people were asking, what was actually your story? Because it's all a little vague, and I've been getting a lot of feedback too of where it's like, okay, what's this Thursday breakfast you guys talk about? Like, who's the group? Who are these people? Well, all that will come out. But the subject I'd like to cover today is the actual come to Jesus moments, the actual catastrophic events of what sucked so much that it actually made us break our inertia and do what we had to do. Because I thought I knew what your catastrophic event was, but then you told me that wasn't it.
Part of it.
If you're comfortable sharing the whole story or part of the story, just whatever.
Yes, I will.
Please.
We'll have to. So it's a very personal story. I bought a new horse last September, and this is the horse I was going to ride for the next 15 or so years. She is a 5-year-old quarter horse, and she is built like a brick house, just muscular quarter horse.
One of my favorite breeds, for sure.
And so I was at the local arena with her, just doing circles. She was very green broke, and I trained my last horse, so I'm like, I can train this horse too.
Green broke means she's not well trained. She's still very
green broke means she
wild.
had a couple rides on her, but she didn't know much.
Oh, okay.
And so one thing with horses is you have to build trust and relationship with them. And that's something that I was working on with her, was building trust and relationship. And she was a horse that was used for like carriage rides at the Pendleton Rodeo and downtown Spokane, and she had been used, in a lot of different areas. So she's pretty bomb proof to like noise and cars and people. But at the arena that day, it was spring, it was May, so people were starting to mow their lawns, there were people moving out and about, and she was definitely on alert and a little edgy about all the noise. I think when she's on a carriage, she's with another horse.
Oh,
so there was comfort there, as where now I had her alone. And, everybody always says, don't let the horse boss you around, so of course, both times I followed that advice, I ended up in the ER, so rethinking that. But
well, when the horse weighs 10 times as much as you, it has a little bit more weight to throw around.
So I kept riding. Somebody shows up to the arena, pops out of the woods. They must live nearby. They popped out of the woods with their horse. It was just wild and out of control and flinging rocks, and my other horse was tied to the trailer. And the rocks are pelting the trailer, so the horse tied to the trailer couldn't see what was going on and started to get nervous and, freak out. And then my friend had another horse that she was also working on training tied to her trailer that started to freak out, and it was just a circus for a second. And I was on the other side of the arena just doing nice calm circles, just working with my horse, and then all of a sudden she caught noise and freaked out. And she went into, and it all happened before I could even realize what was happening. I was focused on what I was doing, so I wasn't even noticing the horse and the rocks flinging, and I was pretty focused, and she noticed it, and she went down. The first thing I remember is I'm like, holy crap, her head is on the ground. She put her head down as far as she could on that first buck, and it must have thrown me forward. So where it gets really bad. So she must have thrown me forward. So I must have got a little bit of air, because I did not I wasn't expecting it. Like, I was just so caught off guard, and that's my bad because I don't know. I mean, maybe it wasn't. But anyway, flung me forward, so I'm thinking, oh, this is it. I'm going off, And as she came up, I came down on that saddle horn, and she tore my butt wide open. So, to get into actual detail, I have, to tell what actually happened, I have to get a little personal here. So it was, like this much space to my actual, butthole. And it ripped my butt cheek wide open. And I landed on my shoulder when I finally hit the ground. And the first thing I did was reach back and grab my butt. And I was like, no, I did not feel what I think I just felt, because it was just filleted wide open. So I went back for a second check, and I'm like, oh no, I felt that. And I looked at my hand, and it was just full of chunks of meat and blood. Oh. And I was like, my first thought was, modern medicine can fix this. They can fix this. Ooh. I will be able to poop normally again. Because, I couldn't tell. I just know that it felt like I was just
filleted like a fish.
Yes, like.
Oh my gosh.
And so my girlfriend's chasing down the horses, and I don't think she realized because I had fallen and I was facing her, so she couldn't tell, but it ripped my jeans. My butt was hanging wide out, like ripped the butt right out of my jeans. And I'm hollering to her to come help, and she runs over, and I go, is my asshole torn wide open? And she looks at it and she goes, I can't tell, but that's a lot of blood and that's gotta hurt. And I'm like, it does. Call my husband. So I'm laying there, and she's wanting to get me up and move me, and I'm like, I am not moving. I am staying right here until Dylan comes and picks me up. Like, I've been in enough emergency accidents. I'm like, you don't move. Like, I didn't know what was broken at the time. I just knew my ass hurt really bad.
Right.
And she wasn't, it's funny because she wasn't a ton of help. I thought she would have been better in an emergency situation, but she wasn't the best. So my phone's in the saddle horn bag on the horse that had taken off. Thank God we were in arena, but she had to go chase down my horse, get my phone out of the saddle bag. And so I called Dylan, and I was just like, you gotta come get me at the arena and take me to the ER. And he's like, okay, I'll be right there, And he didn't even ask, like, why, what, who, nothing. I'm just like,
just took care of business.
Yeah, just, you gotta get here. So it's about 10 minutes from my house. He shows up, and, when I saw him pulling, I started trying to get up. And I'm like, my butt's still hanging out. So if anybody's around, they're full view.
Right, because that's the worst thing that's going on.
Yeah, and I'm bleeding, too. Like, there's, blood everywhere. And so he gets me in the truck, and I had to ride, and that's why I sit like this right now, because my left side's still healing. But in the truck, I had to sit completely on my side and hold on to the oh shit handles to keep myself elevated, because I couldn't sit. And the whole time I'm like, they can fix this, they can fix this, they can fix this. Like, I envisioned it literally going in my butthole and just tearing it wide open. Thank God that's not what happened.
Okay, I'm glad you last said that. Okay, good.
But that's what I'm envisioning on the way to the hospital.
Right.
That's, yeah. So, get to the ER, and I've got to be in shock. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it was hurting, most painful. I mean, it was definitely in pain, but when I got to the ER, the guy rolls up, and the guy happened to be the son of the pastor of one of the churches we went 2 years ago.
Cute.
Like, super straight-laced kid. And he rolls up with this wheelchair, and the first thing I say is, can they fix buttholes here? And he looks and he's like, well, I don't know, but we'll get you in there. And they'll take a look. And I go, I can't get in that wheelchair. Like, do you have something I can lay on? Like, I can't sit. And he says, well, we don't really have any, like, I don't know what to, he didn't know what to do. He's like, I don't know what to do. All we have is a wheelchair. Can you walk? I'm like, I don't think so. So I got in the wheelchair and just had to, prop myself up. They rolled me in. Thank God they took me back right away. So they take me back. They get me laid down on a bed. They're giving me pain meds, morphine, all the stuff. It still hurts so bad. I'm like, this is not helping. Like, it is so painful. And, the ER doctor comes in and they cut my pants off of me. They cut, what was left off of me. They're in there looking. And I'm looking back and I go, please tell me you can fix it. And he goes, well, he says, and I go, that's not what I want to hear. And he goes, well, I can't really tell what's going on. I'm going to have somebody else look at it. And Dylan said he's in there with like a squirt bottle trying to like clean it out or whatever. And he's
The
like,
blood and dirt
I
from
can't
everything.
tell what's happening here. So another guy comes in. And, once someone's standing in front of me, and then another person comes in. And then before I know it, there's 8 people standing in my ER room, and I'm like, I'm the person you're going to go home and say, you'll never believe what I saw today. And I'm on morphine, too, so I'm probably a little loopy.
A little.
But, everybody's in my room looking at my butt, so.
There's a scene in Friends where Ross goes in because he has something on his butt and it's not a mole, it's not this or that, and goes in to see the doctor.
Yes.
And the dog is like, well that's strange. Hey Johnson, can you bring in yourself? Mm-hmm. Can you come in? Yeah, I'm here. I'm here with Mark. Bring him too. And then before too long, it's just a whole room. It's like all of the students, all of the residents, and he's like, ladies and gentlemen, in 30 years, I have never seen something like this. And they all go, oh. And Ross is there just like bent across the bed, just like,
so that's what comedy, I'm imagining. But that was legit my life that day. Like, there were so many people in the room. I mean, it just, yeah. And so he couldn't tell. So then the surgeon has to come down. And they get the surgeon down there. And I got the story later that the surgeon... He's like, yeah, the ER doctor couldn't really explain what was happening. So I was like, I'll be right there. So the surgeon had to come down. And, the ER doctor's like, this is definitely top 3 worst thing I've ever seen. And like, that's not what I want to hear, Surgeon couldn't tell what's going on. Because they were afraid that I had ripped my intestines internally.
Your colon, all that stuff.
All that stuff. So they sent me to eat the emergency surgery. I made it into surgery by 2 a.m. and I think I went in at like 4, and I was in pain the whole time. It was pretty much a whirlwind of, I don't even know. I kept saying, I need warm blankets. They were just piling warm blankets on me because I was freezing and I was bleeding. And, at one point I'm like, can you fix the blood loss? Like, I don't want blood from the hospital. Like, I was very strict on, I do not want blood, so make sure I'm not losing too much. And 2 a.m. they finally convinced I didn't want to take fentanyl. They're like, we're going to give you some fentanyl. I'm like, fentanyl? And she goes, not the street kind. And I'm like, I don't care. I don't want it. She goes, trust me, you'll feel better if you take it. I'm like, oh, okay. At that point, I'm just like, whatever. Load me up with whatever. So they give me some fentanyl, and finally the pain kind of goes away. And then they had to go through the whole prep me for surgery or whatever. And they had to put a camera up there and just see. They dyed my intestines and wanted to make sure nothing was leaking. So, ended up, thank God, best outcome for worst case scenario situation. Because who lands on a saddle horn when they get bucked off? Like,
right.
I've never heard of that. I Googled it. I couldn't find any cases of that. I'm like, how does this happen?
Well, there's at least one now.
And if it didn't tear any, it just tore my butt cheek open. So thankfully everything still, I didn't have to have a colonoscopy bag. I didn't have to do any of that.
Right.
They would have had to do reconstructive surgery.
Right.
None of that. So
thankfully.
So I spent 3 days in the hospital, antibiotics. Oh, the antibiotics, they hurt so bad. You could feel them go all the way through your veins, and they just felt like razor blades going through your veins. So they'd give me pain meds to give me antibiotics. And
That's awesome.
yeah, and they didn't want to let me go because they couldn't stitch it up. It was such a jagged tear. It was about, I think, maybe 6 inches long, 2 inches deep. And they couldn't sew it because it would leave it
6 inches, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
It would leave it too.
Thank God.
It would leave it too tight, and it would pull forever. So they just had to let it heal from the inside out, and I just had to gauze it, soak it, gauze it, pack it for. It took 6 weeks to close.
Well, what I found out years ago was that skin does break or tear because of the way the fascia is, where the material won't even be ripped or the boot, but there will just be a gash because the pressure was so much it actually made the skin tear. It sounds like that's what happened. Was there just so much pressure because saddle horns are not made to be sharp.
They called it penetrating trauma by a blunt object. So
now that's a 90s band name if I've ever heard one.
Yeah, and they were very concerned about infection, and so it was 6 weeks of just and then I had just had my two key managers had quit on me. I own a landscape company, so they had quit on me the Monday before the Thursday of my injury. And I had hired a new operations manager that it all just so funny how it worked out. So I hired a new operations manager. I interviewed him on Friday. I offered him the job on Monday, and I gave him 24 hours to respond. On Monday morning, my two managers quit on me. They put in their 2 weeks notice, which really was more damage than good, because I think they were trying to sabotage, I swear. But anyway, they quit on me. So the Monday, the new operations manager accepted the job. He was supposed to start Monday, which I couldn't go to work because I was in the ER. I was in the hospital until Sunday night. And I was like, I'm going to try to go to work Monday. But they had loaded me so full of, laxatives and trying to, get stuff going again after the injury. I couldn't leave the house. There was no way. I tried to go to work. I got there, and I turned around and went right back home. I'm like, nope, this isn't happening.
The home...
Can't do it.
The home office is now the porcelain god.
Right.
Yeah.
And not only that, I was still on drugs. They had me on pain meds.
Were you still doing fentanyl?
No, it was oxys, though. They had me on oxys, and those made me feel drunk. And so the new manager starts, and thank God I had spent the winter writing a lot of, all the SOP, standard operating procedures for my business.
Nice.
So, I told him, I'm here. I worked through Google Chat to train him. I was like, everything's documented, all your roles, step by step, thorough documentation on how to do things. Just work through them and ask me questions as you go. I don't know what else to do. I can't be there. My two managers had quit. The poor guy walked into a complete shitstorm. Half my employees left that first week. When one person quits, you always lose some with them. When two people quit, I lost half my staff. Half the people left. And I couldn't do a dang thing about it. I was pretty well stuck at home. And so thank God he came in. He had plenty, I hired well. Hiring well is the key to being a successful entrepreneur.
Right.
And he just put it back together for me. And that's when I realized, okay, all the work I had done in the last 8 years building this business, all the standard operating procedures, all the job descriptions, all the roles, everything I had done worked. And I was like, they don't need me.
Nice.
I haven't been back since.
That's great.
We're going on 4 months. everything's running smoothly, everything's going great. I mean, there's general
Well, the usual stuff.
managerial issues that, he's having to hire new people, and there's still the stuff, but I haven't had to go in and do it. And had this accident not happened, I may have never tested my systems.
Right.
And I always felt guilty. I'm always like, I don't want to hand everything off. Like, I'm the owner of the company. I can't just hand it off and walk away.
Well, here's the thing, in case you have any residual feelings like that, or something comes up, or someone, well-intentioned or not, tries to make you feel a certain way. I worked for an outfit down in Savannah, Georgia, where it was a window cleaning outfit, and it was 3 women in charge of the office, and there was one guy in charge of, like, tools, equipment, stuff going to the crews. The owner was a 40-year-old ginger, reminded me a lot of me, just taller, more handsome, and maybe, probably, definitely smarter. And he loved to just spend 10 months out of the year in South Africa and dirt bike and hang glide.
Yeah.
That's just what he loved to do. And one of the things I noticed, because one of the reasons I got on with that crew in the first place was because the owner was an absentee owner. And he would just come back once in a while for a week or two and check in on things. And what I realized is that the employees didn't care as long as they got their paycheck.
Yeah.
The managerial staff, the gals upstairs who were in charge, they loved the fact that he wasn't there. They got to do their thing, their way. They each had their own jurisdiction, and they all worked together. They would all work together, but each one knew what her job was and was very possessive of it.
Yep.
And that was her nest, and that's what she would do. And they were not just okay with him being gone, like, oh, he's the one who gets paid. They were happy that he was gone because they could do their thing their way, and he was happy to leave them to it. And it reminds me of clients of mine who have been married for 50 years, and the most happy, peaceful, relaxed couples that I've met are ones where the husband is just completely hands off with some things.
Yeah.
And there are some things the wife is completely hands off of, at least ostensibly.
Yeah.
But there are just some things where, like, a lot of times what comes up, anything that has to do with the house or how it's run, he trusts her to know their budget. He trusts her to know, to give a yay or a nay on if I'm doing the work or not. Where it's just like, no, that's her.
Yep.
He's happy he doesn't have to deal with it, deal with the minutia, because he's had to deal with providing for them the whole time, because quite often she was stay-at-home mom. And she's happy that she gets to build her space the way she wants, and he has the shop, and she makes it comfortable and nice for him in the home, but it's all on her terms, and they're happy. And it sounds like you got an operations manager who's also that way, who's just happy that he gets left the hell alone. And there are people like that, where that's what they want. They want to be in charge of things, but they don't want to be the first line of defense if things go catastrophically wrong. They still have kind of a bailing option, but they're still in charge of things, and it's in their best interest to keep things going as well as they can. And they get invested in it. It's their baby.
Yeah, and you want to compensate them for the work they do also. Those people get paid well, and I just would have, and I knew that. And when I started my business, I always knew I wanted to be an absentee owner. I couldn't get out of my own way on my own.
Right.
I had to be forced into it because I had guilt. Whether they felt that way or not, I felt that way, and I couldn't seem to get over it. And I always injected myself and wouldn't quite let go, not because I didn't want to, but because I was afraid of being judged. I was afraid I was going to get judged
for not working hard, for
Uh-huh.
being lazy, for exploiting the workers.
Exploiting the workers is probably the biggest one. And, I just felt guilt and it sucked. And then when the accident happened, I was out for 6 weeks. I couldn't, I was at 2 weeks completely immobile, like couldn't leave the house, was on oxys, like it was a mess. And then
While you're looking great.
Thanks. There's a lot of residual stuff I'm having to deal with because I tore a huge muscle group wide open. And so things aren't really working properly muscle wise. And I've always been super active, so I'm physical therapy, chiropractor, massage. It's 4 months in and I'm still struggling to heal.
Well, when I twisted my foot a couple years ago, and my massage therapist said, for one, I don't know how you didn't break your foot.
Mm-hmm.
She said, but I know how. It's because I'm tough.
Bulletproof.
Bulletproof, baby.
Let's not test that.
Right, let's not. But she said that, not only is she surprised that I didn't break it because of how bad the tears were,
Mm-hmm.
but that I should have broken it because a broken foot would have healed in 6 to 8 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
The torn muscle, she said, it'll be about 18 months. And that turned out to be about what it was.
Yeah.
And it was really unfortunate because I haven't gotten back to the point of where I was before, because I would run 3 to 5 miles as a warm-up before a workout 4 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just gung-ho getting after it. And I would run 7 and 10 miles on a big day. So it was, I would run a 10K as a warm-up.
Yeah.
And then go and work out for an hour, hour and a half.
So are you in pain now and that's why you can't, or what?
No, it's just I got out of it and then I got into strength training and bodybuilding. And that, I just got more into that and I enjoyed that more than the cardio per se. But those tears, it's wild stuff. It's wild stuff.
Yeah. I didn't realize all the intricacies of the human body, but definitely been an experience. But the silver lining, positive out of it, I mean, I'm thankful that I was put in that position. And
Right.
I mean, there were mornings, and when my managers quit, even before my injury, that week, I would get up and I'm like, I can't keep going. I have to put all this together. I have jobs on the line. I have jobs that were sold that I don't know anything about because my managers had sold them. And I cried every morning and was just like forcing myself, just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And I got to that feeling where I'm like, I don't even think I can just keep putting one foot in front of the other. And then the injury happened on top of it.
Right.
And I'm like, I am not putting one foot in front of the other anymore. Like, I literally physically cannot.
Right.
And, it taught me that I can actually manage remotely. I'm in conversation with my operations manager at least once a week. But yeah, that was the eye-opening experience that changed the trajectory, because now that I'm not going in managing my landscape company, it's not taking 50, 60 hours a week anymore. I have time to sit here and do this. And I've been working on, my blog. I've also been working on I'm working on a product. I'm working on putting together an education system, some sort of online course training that is focused on helping business owners move from business manager to business owner. So somebody
to being owned by their business,
yes,
to actually owning
I
a business.
want to help people take that step out of their business to be absentee owners. So people who are interested in being absentee owners, I want to help them get there, because now I've taken that leap. I was forced into it.
Right.
And that's where I'm like, I can help other people because I was forced into it. And if I wasn't forced into it, I don't know if I would have done it. So I can speak now to business owners and kind of walk them through and guide them through how to take that leap.
Buy a horse.
Without getting Their butt cheek ripped wide open.
Okay, yeah. Just
So-
buy a green broke horse.
Yeah, so I'm going to save people some pain, hopefully, and help them, be the business owner, entrepreneur that I think most people envision when they start businesses.
Right.
Most people start businesses not wanting to be the 60, 70, 80-hour a week owner that is burned out and never gets rest and just constant fight or flight mode. That's not a healthy life.
Was there a final thought you wanted to end it on?
I feel like this whole podcast was about me this time, but I know you had feedback from people and they wanted to hear my story, so I hope my story can encourage people, and probably gonna laugh too because it was a real pain in the ass.
Well, it was good to have oh gosh, that was such low hanging fruit.
I know.
Oh, that
it was so
terrible.
easy.
Oh, that was terrible.
So yeah, I mean, everybody's reaction when I first told them about it, everybody laughed, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry." And I'm like, "No, I get it. It was a real pain in the ass."
Right. Well, have you read the book Stranger in a Strange Land?
No.
It's by Heinlein, and it's from the golden era of sci-fi. It's one of the classics of sci-fi, and I'm not even into sci-fi, and I love this book. Really long book, and it's a parable of Christ, and it involves a Martian, a human who was born on Mars but raised by Martians, and he comes to Earth and he has the hardest time adapting to Earth. And the thing he has the most difficult time, I think it takes him most of the book to figure out what humor is. Mm-hmm. Because on Mars there was no such thing as humor.
Yeah.
And he at last gets to a point where he discovers, because it's the last question that just irks him, because he understands it's some sort of human experience that he wants to partake in. And he discovers, it's a really deep book, and he discovers that humor is the technique, the tool, the system that humans use to cope with the tragedy that is life. Mm-hmm. And he laughed for 2 days straight because he just realized how tragic it all was that he just started laughing. And, especially for a book from the 60s, I don't know if Heinlein was doing LSD with all the people in San Francisco, but it was a really great book. And that's kind of all we can do is, if you have the option of laughing or crying, I always choose laughing.
Yeah.
And
definitely.
Sometimes I laugh till I cry. Yeah. And that's fine.
Yeah. I'll have to check that out for sure.
It's an easy listen, but to sit down and read, it's time consuming. But I have a really great narration on Audible. Okay. But thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah,
that was wild, because I had known you'd been busting your ass for a while, but I didn't know.
Literally busting my ass.
Right. Well,
the jokes never end.
Well, that's the thing that I've found though, is that with a lot of things that occur in people's lives, is that where the body, the spirit, God, intuition tries to tell us what you're doing is unhealthy, or it's bad, or it's wrong. Well, what's bad or wrong? That which is unhealthy. What's unhealthy? That which is unsustainable. And it's so wild when things like that are then the things that turn out to be the best things that could have happened. Yeah. Because I forget what it's called, but there's a paradox of sometimes a bad situation isn't bad enough. Whereas if you're in an okay job, but you don't enjoy it, but it's really not that great, but it pays you enough, but you're miserable, it would be better to be in a job that's worse, because that would actually create an impetus to change the circumstance and the situation. Whereas if a situation is bad, toxic, and we see it too outside of a spiritual sense or emotional mental sense, where if we're in a toxic environment, like in a home where there's just enough mold to make you sick once in a while, but not really cause an issue enough to where you call someone,
Yep.
that is actually worse than an environment that is 10 times as toxic, because it doesn't make you aware enough to go, oh, this is so bad, I need to change it. It doesn't create that response in you.
Yep.
And you know, you were just being stubborn until at last, whatever it was, your body, your mind, your spirit, your soul, at last was like, you know what, fine. Won't do it the easy way, we'll do this the hard way. Let's go, son.
And I feel like there was some healing, not just in my body when, after the injury, but some mental healing, because I had time to come back to normal, where relationships are more important to me now. I've been just focusing on building a business for so long that I neglected relationships.
Right.
I neglected everything except for that business. And so now I don't feel like I'm in fight or flight mode for the first time in maybe ever. And it feels good to be able to care about people again. Just for the sake of caring about them.
Right.
Talking to people just for the sake because I'm interested. Not, because I always talk to people, but it was clients, it was employees. I was always trying to get to a certain point.
Right. And that the goalposts kept shifting.
And so, it's nice to just kind of feel human for the first time in a long time. But 2023 has been rough. It's still coming. This week has been, and there's things I can't get into yet, but in the future podcasts, when the dust settles on what I just currently am going through,
Cool.
which I'll share that story at a later date, but 2023 keeps coming, and I am praying for a little bit of relief on this wasn't catastrophic to me. It's just a part of life. But it is also life-altering, and I've had, I think, 3 life-altering things happen in 2023 already, and I'm just like, please give me a break, God. No more life-altering changes this year, please.
Right, it's like my mom sent me a meme, and I love it that my mom was born in 51, and my mother sends me memes. Just cracks me up, and some of them are really just, they're not boomer memes. They're edgy memes, and to get those from my mom just cracks me up.
I still haven't met your mom, but knowing you, I have no doubt your mom sends you edgy memes.
And one of it was like a gal where it's like, I don't know what it was from, but there's a gal who just had like this face, and it said, when you think you've done enough learning and growing, but life doesn't agree with you. And it's
that's me. Yeah, totally. I can
good
relate.
stuff.
So
great.
Yeah, so I have more stories to share at another date, but I'm excited to hear a little bit more about you maybe in one of the future podcasts.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Okay.
And thanks so much for being here.
Of course.
That was a lot of fun, and I was laughing my butt off.
Oh,
yeah.
I know, the jokes are never going to end.
Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. All right, well, thanks so much, and we will be seeing you next time.
Thank you.
I appreciate you.
Of course,
Okay.
thank you.
See you next time.